everybody from that short break. And thank you, Manda, for that wonderful talk that we just had. Well, now we're here for our second talk of the day, and I have the honor of welcoming Vey Straker to speak to us. So it's an honor to introduce Vey Straker, also, as some of you may know her as Lady Wye. She's an inspiring environmental water activist and ceremonialist who has been a driving force behind the Save the Wye movement, advocating for the health and future of that sacred waterway. I first met Vey at the Unite to Survive march that was happening in the city of Bath a few years ago, where Vey was part of the water ceremonies and leading that prayer in and throughout the city, where we marched through the city of Wye and held ceremonies at different places. And her journey throughout has been shaped by a rich and varied background from arts and film to personal development and motherhood, and all of which has deepened her connection to the natural world and her spiritual practice. And we're honoured to have her joining here today to share her story of embodying the River Wye, first as the activist character, Lady Wye, but now throughout the ceremonies and as a ceremonialist, bringing that sacred relationship with water to the forefront of activism. And she will explore and share kind of her story through this presentation and through this talk about how creativity, community, and ceremony have united to galvanize action and inspire river guardians and bring attention to what is happening with the River Wye, and how this has been brought to the attention of decision makers in councils, courts, and corporate boardrooms. So let's give a warm welcome to Vey Straker, and please pop any and all questions in the chat, because we'll have a chance to go through all of those questions at the end. But firstly, Vey, welcome. Really wonderful to have you here.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Thanks for that very generous introduction. And now just give me a moment, because I'd like to share images and videos in my presentation. So I just need to get set up to do that. Super. So when I was asked to speak at this summit, I felt very honoured and excited, and not to mention a little bit intimidated, because I thought the programme, the lineup was fantastic, and there was quite a few people there that I follow and that I've learned from. But in my bag of tricks is being a performer, a producer, a community films project worker, and I've worked in arts development as well. I've also done lots of personal development with Landmark Education, and I was an introduction leader for them for many years. I've been involved in climate campaigning for 25 years, including with Extinction Rebellion. And to that, I brought my arts and theatre work as well as my community work. And in the last 4 years, I've been involved with the Wye campaign. But as I thought about what I could tell you about my own journey from activist to ceremonial activist with the Wye, I realised that all of this is thanks to working with the skills and knowledge and talent of many, many other people. So I'd like to start with some gratitudes. To Tiff and Christina, who first reckoned that my theatre skills could pass for creating ceremonies, I thank you. To the incredible people that I campaigned with on the Wye, Save the Wye, Friends of the River Wye, Extinction Rebellion, Marches Climate Action, and the inimitable and wonderful Angela Jones. And gratitude to the souls who've inspired and got me this far in the world of spirit, especially Sol, who's been my mentor for 15 months, the last 15 months. Thank you. Mandy Pullen, Jenny Haycock, and Jonathan and Krista of Sacred Earth Activism. Thank you. And gratitude to my wonderful partner in this work, Kim Kaos. And of course to the river herself, who has taken all of us on this white water experience over the last couple of years. And I'd just like to bring the River Wye in to the talk right now to be here with us. These are waters that were gathered this morning down by very cold and crispy bank. Welcome, River Wye. So, my concern, what was my calling? To answer the question of the theme of this summit, well, my calling was that I was concerned about the why from 2020, really, during lockdown, when I took my young daughters to the river to paddle and to swim in the hot weather. And I was shocked to see that there was no ranunculus left in the water. Now, ranunculus, as you will know, is water crow's foot, and it's a beautiful weed that billows its long tendrils in the water like hair. And it's got delicate little white and yellow flowers all over it. My girls used to find it quite challenging stepping amongst it because it's a hotbed of little critters and fish fry. But this time it was completely empty of ranunculus, and all that was left was a brown fur across the riverbed. It was devastating. And that's when I sat up and really took notice of the Friends of the Upper Wye Facebook posts about the eutrophication of the river by agricultural runoff that was largely coming from chicken manure from intensive poultry units spread on the fields and being washed off or leaching into the river. And that had intensified over the last decade. At the same time as this, I was approaching my 50th birthday, and I was so aware that the world was falling apart and that we were trampling over the opportunity to stop our biosphere from burning up. I felt deeply trapped, powerless, and frustrated, and panicked about my children's future. Over time, I came to the conclusion that if we were going to go down, the way to go down was together, in relationship, in love. And my strongest desire for the second half of my life was to get a visceral sense of being one with this beautiful planet, not just as concept, but as an experience. So I started exploring how to listen and how to connect with my environment. So when did I start doing ceremonial work? Well, back in 2021, there was a Wye, walk for the Wye. Excuse me 1 minute. And this was a pilgrimage from the source down to the mouth, taking source water from the top to the bottom of the Wye. And along the way, there were events. And in Ross-on-Wye, we were asked to do one, and we chose to do a ceremony and a people's assembly. And I was asked to support creating the ceremony because of my performance background. I had no ceremonial training at all, but I had that experience of being a producer and a performer. We asked a talented poet locally, Chris Taylor, to create a verbatim poem. And so we invited lots of different river lovers, farmers, paddleboarders, swimmers, walkers with their dogs, people who loved the river, all to come to, and fishermen and fisherwomen, of course, all to come together and talk about their experience and their relationship with the Wye. And this we used. And I would like to show you a little clip of that first ceremony.
Walk through the world with care, my love, and sing the things you see. Let new names take and root and thrive and grow. And even as you stumble through Mackay sands eroding, let the fern unfurl your grieving, let the heron steal your breathing, let the silky swim you deeper, oh my little silver seeker. Even as the hour grows bleaker, be the singer and the speaker. And in city and in forest, let the larks become your chorus. And when every hope is gone, let the raven call you home. Why, who has held us? Why, who has fed us? Why, who has taught us magic and poise? We step up in respect. We step up to protect. We step into her embrace. Step in, walkers and swimmers, anglers, farmers and boaters, all who drift and grow and idle languid days, all who have lost themselves and found their souls somewhere on her shady shore. Step into her flow, her gift, her rule, blood of this land, blood of our veins. Let us give respect, pledge to protect, accepting her embrace as we offer up our own.
This ceremony had a profound effect on me and several other people. It felt like meeting the river for the very first time as a sentient being. I realised what an amazing opportunity ceremony is for galvanising a diverse set of people around something that they all love. And new people who would never have considered themselves activists stepped up to get involved in the campaigning later that summer and for the next few years. So how did I come to be embodying the Wye? Well, it started out, excuse me, with this Lady Wye character in a street theatre piece for a local Extinction Rebellion campaign, challenging Tesco's over their role in the destruction of the Wye and their hypocrisy. They had the most wonderful sounding environmental policy about not polluting waterways and not allowing their suppliers to damage ecosystems. But it's all lies. And we launched the campaign in February 23 on Valentine's Day. The River Wye was a woman scorned on the warpath with Tesco's because he had made these promises and reneged on them all. We wanted her to be like a warrior queen, somebody that you wouldn't want to mess with. And I'll just give you a little taster of her.
We are expecting two very special guests today. Number one, Monsieur Tesco. Number two, the marvelous Lady Wye.
Tesco! It is I, River Wye. I have arrived at your doors and I demand a Valentine's audience with you. You say you care for me. You say you want to protect me. You write fine promises in your environmental policies, but your actions speak louder than your words. Roses are red, violets are blue. It's because of your greed that I am dying from chicken poo. What are you trying to do to me, man? Poison me?
It wasn't obvious already, the reason that Tesco were our target is that they buy their chicken from Avara Cargill, which has got its massive chicken units and many, many of them in the Wye catchment. So the Lady Wye character caught on and was asked to attend various Tesco protests and events. Each time I was asked to bring her out, I was thinking more and more about what would the river be like as a person. So it really started out as a character acting exercise. When did I start bringing embodiment of the why into direct action? Well, this is outside the Cargill feed mill for the blockade in 2023. Extinction Rebellion activists arranged a second blockade of the feed mill. And this is where the soy comes in from Amazon, shipped over, and where the chicken feed then goes out. Many dozens of lorries every day. So we wanted to disrupt their business as usual, to protest about their destruction of the Amazon for their soy and the destruction of our wye for their soy-fed chicken. We had a number of eye-catching interventions that day. We set up an ecocide crime investigation scene, which was with a noisy, indignant, person-sized chicken and some colourful flares around the tripod. But I felt strongly it was an opportunity to bring the presence of the river right into the middle of the action, and partly to give a chance to give her an opportunity to express her own indignance or plea to Cargill, and partly to honour the sacrifice of the activists. A fellow activist told me that when I came in as the river into the protest space, it created a moment of pause and stillness at the action and calm. Everyone was able to bring themselves to it just as they were. It wasn't a ceremony as such, but it felt like it, without anyone needing to believe in anything particular or have a faith. I read a poem from the Ross ceremony and I sang song, and I paused to acknowledge the activists with extended eye contact or just a silent touch. And this lady on the tripod said she was not expecting it, but it did move her to tears. And I think she experienced the preciousness of her own stand and that it was loved and appreciated by the river. There were at least 5 people arrested by the police that day for peacefully protesting. And the charges weren't dropped until many months later. So the activists did make the sacrifice for their beloved river that day. How did the Lady Wye and Tesco story end? I had a strong sense that Lady Wye needed to go to Tesco headquarters with the campaign, and it was clear that the AGM was going to be the best opportunity to do that. So here's a quick clip of Lady Wye making her demands.
Okay. Have you not had your fill of Avara Cargill, who sully my waters so clear?
Madam?
You oil their wheels for your chicken meal deals, but you risk something precious and dear. Okay. Come out and meet me, I beseech thee. Show me the respect I deserve.
Madam,
I will show you the love of my many admirers.
Is this lady in charge here?
Do you have the nerve?
Is she?
Yeah. Well, no, Tesco, Tesco, Tesco.
Thank you, lady.
Honour your environmental policy. Take on the mantle of responsibility. And Tesco, stop killing the wye.
Can't help feeling a little bit sorry for the security guard. Anyway, eventually she made her way into the Tesco headquarters and she demanded to meet Ken Murphy, the CEO, so that she could present to him the mantle of responsibility, which had all the petition signatures, or some of the petition signatures, all over the feathery cape. She was cordoned off by the security guards, who eventually called the police. The police couldn't remove her because they had no jurisdiction on private ground. So eventually the only way to get rid of her was to manhandle her out of the building for themselves, which was not a good look for Tesco's. But within 24 hours of the Wye's presence at the AGM, and there were many of us and we were inside as well, Tesco had agreed to visit the catchment. And within a few months, Tesco's suppliers, Avara Cargill, were announcing that they were fast-tracking their roadmap for the Wye, and with immediate effect would be shipping 75% of their chicken manure out of the catchment so that it couldn't be spread on the fields and it couldn't go into the river. There was a certain head of water that had built up around this campaign, and we managed to push Avara over the line to make a change. It was a landmark moment. For me, it was particularly significant because I experienced the unstoppable flow of the river within me. That was not like me making a nuisance of myself and defiantly standing up to middle-aged men. That was the Wye. And she showed me this new part of me and what the next chapter of my life could be like. So how did the accompanying of the Wye water into decision-makings get started? I met Kim Kaos, an experienced puppeteer and arts activist in summer 2023. Kim created the goddess of the Wye that summer. And Kim had been thinking more and more about the importance of bringing the river herself into the room where her health or anything that would affect her was being discussed. So in the autumn, when we were invited to attend the first river conference convened by Herefordshire Council called Building Bridges Over Troubled Waters, we asked Alyssa Swinglehurst, who was the cabinet member for the environment for Herefordshire Council, if we could bring the River Wye waters into the meeting. And I was amazed and excited when I got a yes. So the river water in a beautiful blue and green spiraling glass vase, very hastily purchased by Kim from eBay, well done Kim, was carried up to the front by me and placed on the end of the top table with all the other speakers. Alyssa very elegantly introduced the river and invited everyone to pause and take a few moments to consider why we were all there and to think about their own relationship with the river. And we all did. And when speakers mentioned the Wye, they would gesture to the vessel at the end of the table, the water. One of the councillors, excuse me, who was supporting Alyssa, took an interest in the river water, although he made it very clear that he wasn't spiritual. He asked if the river might stay at the council building for the staff and the visitors to remember the importance of her. But water is a vital force, and it didn't make sense for her to sit around for too long, gathering dust and quite quickly being forgotten about and taken for granted in the foyer. So we suggested that she have a residency in the headquarters for a fortnight, where she could be formally welcomed by the councillors and then stay to allow the councillors and staff to take time with her, spend time with her, to reflect on her before she had a leaving ceremony. So let me play you a bit of video to show you this part of this ceremony, which was the first of its kind in the UK, welcoming a river to the doors of a council.
We welcome you all very much here to Plough Lane today, which are the headquarters of Herefordshire Council. And in particular, we welcome the opportunity to demonstrate our commitment very much to our river that runs through our county, and also to all her tributaries as well. The River Wye and her tributaries have been the basis on which civilization in this county has grown for hundreds and thousands of years. It has seen the flourishing of settlements and populations and the development right along its edges. So therefore it's very important to us now to realise what we over the years have done to it and how we should value it, and how we should value the whole valleys and streams that run into her. She says it is time.
A system that regards nature, rivers, trees, wildlife, all the bounty of the natural world, that regards it as a dead resource to be used and extracted for human ends as we wish to do so. It is only by changing that belief, by once again regarding nature as sacred, and then putting that sacredness into practice in our legal, political, economic and social systems, that we have any chance of truly saving the river that you love from destruction.
Through the Golden Valley, meandering, here affords a shire where such beauty flows, albeit nature changes everything, needs must, although the problem only grows lest a way is found to cultivate things enriched in harmony with tributaries, surrounded by what nature also brings, the compensation of so many trees.
We see the otters and the mayfly, the salmon and the trout. We see all the life of the Wye, the life we cannot live without. Still every day we carry on, excusing what we do not do, until the thing we say we love is gone. Except today we start anew. We owe this to our river, we owe the salmon and the swan. We owe future generations so they have something to pass on. We have been blessed by her for centuries, as from field through stream and tributaries, she takes our sin and carries it out into the sea.
We were blown away by the enthusiasm from the council for this. We essentially supported them to come up with the content of the meeting, provided obviously all the setting and the creation of the shrine. And the leader of the Conservative group and the deputy leader of the council both wrote poems to honour the Wye that they read out. And they invited Paul Powsland, the lawyers for nature speaker, to come. Paul Powsland was contracted to help afterwards to find a voice for the river, for the council's river committee. And this started a series of opportunities for the river to attend meetings and court hearings and conferences, some with opening ceremonies and others more informally, as in the case of entering the Civil Justice Court in Cardiff. This is Charles Watson from River Action, who was taking the Environment Agency to court over neglecting to sufficiently protect the Wye. And he took a small bottle, as you can see in his hand, a plastic bottle of the water. We weren't allowed to take glass in. Beautifully painted by Kim It also had to have a sterilising tablet in it, sadly, so that he could sip it to prove to the court steward that it wasn't acid or some poison that he was taking in, although that is debatable these days with the Wye, sadly. So how have we used ceremony to support river campaigners? Our activists do get burnt out. They put so much energy, time, sacrificing often family time, leisure, work, financial resources, even risking their liberty. And so very often the tangible successes are short-lived or few and far between. And there's always that background of the mainstream business as usual narrative that is very, very wearing. And when we poured the water back into the river after one of our meetings and told the river what had occurred and how much love had been manifested for her, I realised that it was really important to me that the river knew that how much we loved her and all the work we were doing for her. And that the idea came to me that the river loved me back and appreciated what I was doing. And it really touched me. And that sense of being appreciated by the one that I loved started to filter into all that I was doing. We had a beautiful opportunity to do something with the authors of the book Wild Service at the Vey Wye Literary Festival. Friends of the River Wye had made contact with the Right to Roam campaign, who had just released the book. And the strapline of Wild Service is Why Nature Needs You. We had 3 authors, John Moses, Nadia Sheikh and Amy Jane Beer, and they came down to the Warren, a lovely bend on the river near Vey Wye. The intention of the ceremony was for the authors to access their grief and concerns and get the love, thanks and acknowledgement of the river for their commitments and efforts. And I'd like to read to you some of Amy Jane Beer's article that she wrote for British Wildlife magazine to get a sense of what she got out of it. The ceremony is led by a lady called Vey, who wears a crown with a swan on it. She invites us to stand at the water's edge and select a flower from a basket to hold to our hearts, while we call on non-human aspects of this place to witness us: the fish, the swifts, the insects, the plants, the rocks, the soil. The flowers are placed into a bowl of river water, and then, very gently, Vey guides us in silent considerations of our fears. I close my eyes. Water is lapping pebbles and dripping from a nearby willow. I hear the screams of swifts and the 2-beat chants of chifchaps mingled with blackbird song. I think how far the swifts and warblers have come to be here, in the place where they were born, and their cries become questions. Where are the tresses of wheat? Why is our water so warm and sick? What will become of us? The blackbird who lives here year-round can't explain it. The few straggling mayflies can't explain it. Only one species can explain it. Tears spill. I've stopped being startled by how easily I cry for the wounded wild these days, even in public. It's incredible when you think about it, that environmentalists and conservationists, people whose life work engages with loss of nature, are expected not to mourn it. But at what cost? There's only so much trauma one can suppress before a kind of dehumanizing rot sets in. Vey pours water into our hands, explaining that she's washing our grief into the river, then invites us in turn to address the goddess. We make individual promises to fight for her and the lives she sustains, and to make gratitudes an explicit part of our daily lives. And she reaches out to bless us one by one. And at that point, with my feet in the river, tears still on my cheeks, the huge blue hands gentle on my head and shoulder, she's no longer a puppet. This is no longer theatre. The fears are real. My grief is real. The promises are real. And so, by association, the goddess of the Wye is real. I have to say the response from nature to this ceremony was tremendous too. The forecast was for rain, thunder and lightning all afternoon, but it was dry for the ceremony. The swifts were flying, the songbirds were in full voice. And when we paused to reflect on our love and gratitude for the river, 2 little fish jumped out in front of the authors. And as I closed the ceremony, the first drops of rain arrived, along with more jumping fish, and then it chucked it down. We all got drenched, including the goddess, who's made of paper mache, and I was soaked through to my underwear. Just as we were gathering up to leave, though, I saw the small vessel of water that had been blessed by many people at the festival earlier. I took it down to the river, and as I poured it in, I told the river of all the love for her. And the rain responded with force. It bucketed even harder, and it felt very responsive. I just found myself saying, there's so much love for you, we will protect you. A month later, the Welsh Government did a U-turn and granted the Warren bathing water status, which means there are more checks and measures of the water quality. This was thanks to the Friends of the Upper Wye putting the application, or the River Wye putting the application in, and perhaps a touch of magic from a love-filled ceremony at this exact location. I just wanted to finish with the March for Clean Water. At the end of a busy year, we had the opportunity to lead the March for Clean Water. We were asked by River Action, and we were happy to help. It created a calm, beautiful, reverential spirit at the front of the procession. Kim got busy creating a fantastic sacred block with a water vessel carriage, a huge number of beautiful flags with motifs of river animals and birds printed on them, blue and yellow ceremonialists with bells and bubbles galore. And because the Save the Wye already had a relationship with River Action, we were able to support them to bring the spiritual side into the whole event. Sol, as you know from Sacred Earth Activism, devised a sacred vessel for the whole event and delivered a beautiful series of ceremonies throughout the day. This was us by the Thames in the morning in a sort of intention setting ceremony, and we gathered the waters as well to take with us. We welcomed and blessed waters from 102 different rivers and seashores. We helped ensure that the main stage rally was also spirit-led. So the combined waters that were gathered from all the people coming with their rivers were on stage throughout the rally. All the waters were named and welcomed on the stage by Charles Watson. There was a visualization exercise to connect people with their favourite body of water. And the River Thames was acknowledged for being the hosting river. And then Chris Packham's speech at the end, we couldn't have asked for more. He embodied so many creatures and plants from the rivers and the sea and expressed the pain that they were suffering as a result of the pollution. And he thanked wholeheartedly the waters at the very end of the rally. We heard afterwards that the opportunity for people to bring and honour their waters was a high point for many people. River Action's position at the beginning had been that they consulted with other organisations and that not all of them would be on board with a highly spiritual element on the rally stage. And first and foremost, it was a political rally. They were also mindful of the reputation that the environmental movement has of being a hippie-ish and woke, and they wanted to be careful that the march didn't play into that narrative. But they said they really valued the input through the planning phase, and we most definitely helped shape this side of the day. I think we made the spiritual aspect accessible and non-threatening for everyone, with the beauty and the plain speaking and the authenticity. There have been many more special moments on my journey with the Wye, and the twists and turns have continued to amaze me, and the opportunities keep arising. But I'll pause now for some questions, and you can keep in touch with us here at these links. And as the interest is building in the work that we're doing, it's becoming more intense and busier, which is fantastic. We're looking for funding to keep us sustained while we serve the river and her sister waterways. So please get in touch with us if you know anyone who's got deep pockets and some spare money who might like to support our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vey. That's really amazing work you're doing, and absolutely wonderful to see those videos and get more of a depth of insight into your very rich work. And the first question that's come up in the chat is from Rock, who says, how does Vey see the role and presence of the lady developing into the future?
Great. Thank you. Yes, we've looked at sort of various roles that she seems to fulfill. One of them is this helping to activists and campaigners to rejuvenate, I suppose, through recognizing their relationship with nature, and that what they are campaigning for and striving to fight for and save loves them back, and that there is this deep kinship. And I think if there are more ways and means to enable that, at the same time as using it as a way to ask people to step up into active reciprocity and active protection. I think one of the other ways is that so far there has just been that one good example, I think, of bringing the river to where she's being fought for, and that was at outside the Avara feed mill, Avara Cargill feed mill. And I think that opportunity of that is another opportunity that is very rich in the moment. It brings calmness, it brings focus for everybody, for the media, for the people that we are in opposition to, and I think it can create a relationship and a bond where maybe all there feels like sometimes is antagonism. It can bring the peaceful to the non-violent action. And a third way would be what we're kind of calling moral direct action. And this is something we're looking to develop so that we bring the ceremonial. And I think this is something that Sacred Activism, Sacred Earth Activism are doing already. We want to do this with the rivers as well, but to kind of take ceremony to where harm is being done. And it may not be that there is other activism happening there already, but just maybe where there is a huge amount of pollution, sewage coming out of a pipe and overflow, and just to kind of bring some poise, a little bit like the Red Rebels, but we bring some ceremony, I suppose, to that. And I think that could be really strong for the river, and very powerful for people to see that as well.
Thank you. And a question from Jonathan is, how has your sense of and understanding of the why changed over time, and what has been the most surprising lesson you have learned from her?
Yes, it's certainly deepened over time. This morning I learned something that really touched me, and I think that's there for me now, so I'll share it with you. I've come to know the river as Grandmother Wye, and calling her that name has set up a relationship for me with her. And this morning, what I got was a sense of her provision to me like a mother. And it got me thinking while I was with her that we as a human species many of us have lost our love for that mother. We've lost a deep sense of love for that mother, but we still are very aware of what that mother provides us and how she keeps us alive and sustains us. And there's a missing, and even sometimes as activists, we can be motivated more by the fear of what's being lost. Our life support system is getting lost, and we're indignant about it and angry that people are doing this. But sometimes we forget to bring the love in, and the connectedness and the kinship, and that we work with our nature elders rather than for ourselves on behalf of them, if that makes sense. And yeah, I think it's just through what I've learned through my training, just my somatic training with Jenny has really, really helped. Just being and listening and sensing the river, and being much kinder to myself and her by allowing what does arise to be credited to the river as opposed to dismissed.
Thank you. And what I'm also hearing and sensing is that even though the River Wye, amongst many in the UK, is being polluted, that we don't turn our back on them. They're still part of our identity, and our grandmother, as you say, or as our mother. So keeping that relationship going is beautiful in different ways. There's a third question from John Paul, who asks, do you have a practice or ritual that helps you step into and deepen your embodiment as Lady Wye?
I think the songs that I've learned, largely from Soul, actually help me do that. And that's where I naturally go when I go and spend time with the river. I start with singing, sometimes I start with singing those songs, or I just find myself singing my own tune and my own words. So I think for me, my practice or ritual is standing, feeling my roots going down into the ground by the river, and when the moment comes, I find that some music comes out of my mouth.
Beautiful, thank you. And just to say that Lara suggested that the Rivers Trust might offer financial support.
Thank you, Lara. If you've got any particular contact as well, that would be fantastic. Do let us know.
Wonderful. And there are a few other kind of comments and suggestions in there from people throughout the talk. So do have a look through those. Vey, thank you so much for sharing that with us there. Really, really beautiful to see the journey and to see it visually, because, you know, a lot of what is being held within the ceremonies and within the embodiment is very visual. So thank you for sharing all of those. I've met Lady Wye very much in her gentleness, in her peace, in her in that kind of loving, gentle space. And it was fantastic to see Lady Wye in her fierceness and standing there for the protection, because she has all of those faces. And it's lovely to see how through your embodying her, she's able to share that and show you more and more of that, and you're able to bring that to the campaign and bring that to all of those efforts for change. And there's a lot of people kind of say in the comments, it's inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing that with us in this talk and in this presentation.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And yeah, thank you to the river, and the river thanks you.